All right, we are live. It is now 8:30. Let's just give it a moment here, and then we will get rolling as soon as, let's see. We have a fair number of questions tonight. All right, we are all set. It is now 8:31. We're going to get rolling here. So, hey, everyone, it's Chuck Gross. I hope you're having a great week and a great Wednesday so far. I'm glad that we had some questions rolling in, so we're able to have the hangout this week. Quick announcement, I will be on vacation next week. I'll be sending out an email to everyone tomorrow or Friday, letting you know the details about how that's going to work. But I haven't had a day off so far this year, so I'm going to take one with my family and go on a nice beach trip. So there won't be a hangout next week is kind of the point. So there will be one the following week, though. So, all right, let's go ahead and get to the questions. All righty. Our first question comes from JJ, and JJ asks, what's the best way to help with periods of restless or awake periods for sleep? That's a great question, JJ, especially because I consider sleep the most important factor when it comes to fitness, health, and weight loss. Essentially, it's the keystone that makes all of the other things that we focus on, habits and mindsets and best practices and willpower, all of that kind of rests, no pun intended, rests on sleep being optimized and efficient and getting enough good quality. So this is the area where sleep hygiene and habits come into play. And sleep hygiene just kind of means there are things you can do during the day that affect your sleep quality positively and negatively. So that's what I mean by sleep hygiene. So I'd recommend doing an audit of your habits and hygiene around sleep to see if you can optimize somewhere. And this is going to be a pretty long list. I think it's 11 things. And much like any habit change, I don't recommend you doing all of them starting tomorrow. Basically, find your path of least resistance. If it's a minor change here or there, that minor change may have a bigger payoff than trying to do all the things all at once. So just if one of them kind of sticks out to you, go for it, try it. Smaller changes are easier to kind of adapt into your lifestyle. So the first thing that I would look at that could interfere with sleep, so you might want to minimize, would be caffeine, tobacco products, and any alcohol 4 to 6 hours before sleep. So that means you probably want to stop using those types of things earlier in the day. Alcohol, yes, can make you fall asleep, but it will wake you up in the middle, and then you'll be restless, and it's not a good combination. With that said, I'm not perfect, and there's plenty of times when I have a glass of red wine before bed, but I usually keep it to a glass or two max, or I wake up and have crappy sleep. So, like I said, I'm not perfect myself, and I don't expect you to be a monk. But, yeah. All right, so second, you want to make sure that your sleep environment is cohesive to getting good sleep, and that means a dark, quiet, cool bedroom that has enough air circulation. You should have a comfortable bed and pillows. There's always that saying that, you spend like half your life sleeping, so you might as well have a comfortable bed. I'm sure that was created by mattress salesmen. I'm not a mattress salesman, so I'm going to use it because it's true. If you have a pet that wakes you up in the middle of the night, I would say try to keep them out. Try to keep everything that's not related to sleep and sex out of the bedroom. That means no TVs, computers, cell phones, etc. If possible. I realize that's not always possible. I realize most people use their cell phone for an alarm clock. Therefore, I'd recommend using the blue light filter that comes with iOS now, or getting an app for Android, just to keep any blue light from, reducing your melatonin production naturally and keeping you awake. So third, I would work on establishing a soothing and relaxing pre-bed routine and ritual. So what that means is about an hour before bed, do something that actually de-stresses you, like take a bath, read a book, do some meditation, do some yoga. If you're the type of person that just lays in bed and thinks about all the things you have going on, I would actually recommend journaling. And I don't mean on a computer. I mean on a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, writing out your thoughts and just getting them out of your head, and that should help as far as that goes. You could also keep a pen and paper besides the bed, where if you wake up and have things on your mind, you just want to get them out of your head and write them down so that you know subconsciously that you're not going to forget about them because they've been committed to paper and out of memory. Fourth is go to sleep when you're actually tired. If you're just laying there and you're not falling asleep for 20 minutes, you're trying to ice skate uphill. You're forcing it. It's not going to work. And that's actually going to be worse for your sleep quality than if you just got up and did something else. Like try to go through that soothing bedtime ritual again until you're actually tired enough to sleep. So yes, this means that you may be cutting into your total hours of sleep, but the end result should be a higher quality of sleep. So there's that balancing act between, okay, I slept for 10 hours, but it was 10 hours of crappy sleep versus I had 6 hours of the best sleep of my life. Which one do you think is better for you? I'll leave that as an exercise to you to figure out. Oh, don't watch the clock at bedtime. That means, if you're just staring at the clock and trying to fall asleep to help you, don't do that. It can actually stress you out and make it harder to fall asleep. That's why I don't actually have a clock in my bedroom. When we use the cell phones, but we kind of keep them away from the bed if at all possible. Shoo. All right. When you first wake up, get some sun right away, be it going outside, or if you're waking up and it's still dark out, use like a natural light bulb or sun lamp. They make sun lamps that allow people that work in different climates, like in Alaska, where they don't have days of full light, and that will actually help your internal wake sleep cycle at the right time, and that will help. This next one goes back to the routine. We're having the same bedtime and wake time each day helps with both falling asleep, staying asleep, and waking up feeling refreshed and not snoozing through your alarm. Now, I know that this isn't always possible, and like I said, I'm not perfect myself, nor do I expect perfection from anyone, is that, and weekends happen, of course, and vacations happen, and everything happens. But it's not an all or nothing. It's not you either have the exact same bedtime and wake time every single day. You can kind of find a middle ground between what's helping you without sacrificing too much of your personal life. There is a middle ground there. So do better. Don't try to be perfect with it. That's the best advice I could give as far as that goes. The more consistent you are, the better. Napping. If you have to nap, make sure it's a shorter nap and make sure you're not napping before like 5 p.m. Napping later in the day can really mess up your sleep schedule. So this one may not apply to everyone. It may. Like I said, I always eat larger meals right before bed, and that makes me sleep like a baby that doesn't wake up in the middle of the night, I should say. But if you're having your larger meals in the evening and your sleep sucks and nothing else makes sense, you may need to actually consider moving your evening meals to be smaller, because your indigestion could be causing you a problem with that, especially if you're the type of person that saves up all their protein and tries to get their protein goal in a single meal. Protein takes a lot of energy to digest, so if you're eating all of your protein and then going to bed, guess what? Your body's probably not going to be ready to go to sleep when you want to. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's see. Oh, as you may have noticed, I drink a lot of water. I ask you to drink a lot of water. But that could mean drinking too much water at the wrong time is going to cause you to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, which you don't want to do. So I would, again, front load your water earlier in the day and then try to taper it off so that you're not really drinking a lot of water after a certain time. If you, again, wait all day and say, oh my gosh, I'd had 10 ounces of water today, I need to drink 86 more ounces and I'm going to bed in an hour. Yeah, guess what you're going to be doing? You're going to be up peeing all night and your sleep quality sucks. So yes, many choices you make throughout the day as far as the rest of your fitness can impact the most important habit, which is the sleep quality. So that's something you do have to keep in mind. Let's see. Lastly is exercise. I know some people have recently exercised right before bed. If that works for you, that's okay. But in general, try to finish your exercise at least 3 hours before bed if possible. The very act of strenuous exercises releases stress hormones and keeps your brain alert, just as a function of your nervous system. And you really don't want to, it's going to be harder for you to go to bed when you have a bunch of those stress hormones in your brain. So as long as you're going and exercising and leaving 3 hours between the time of your exercise and when you're ready to sleep, it should not be a huge problem. Yeah, so again, timing can kind of matter there for the most part. But do exercise, though, because regular exercise can actually help with your sleep to fall asleep faster, more efficiently, and help you sleep more soundly. And lastly, if you've tried all of the previous things that I've mentioned, you may, and you still have sleep problems, you may have something that needs clinical help from a doctor. And that doesn't always necessarily mean you have to get a sleep apnea mask or that you need a prescription, but it could be something like getting over-the-counter melatonin. I take over-the-counter melatonin every night myself to help me, but I can't just tell you, go buy melatonin and take it. That's a supplement, and that's something you have to discuss with your doctor, because any supplement can interact with your current health, and I'm not able to just recommend you do that from the get-go. All right, I believe that covers that topic. Let's see. All right, our next topic is not so much a question, but it's something that's been brought up by quite a few people this week. So it's funny how some of these things kind of happen in trends. That's normal though. And it is related to plateaus as far as weight loss. So for most people, their weight loss will happen very rapidly at first, especially for the first few weeks. And then weight loss slows down. And that can happen for a bunch of reasons. But the first person to mention this was Polly. And she mentioned that she was having trouble kind of seeing her progress. So we started looking at the averages per week. And it definitely showed that there was a loss happening every week. And she was still seeing a loss every week. It just had slowed down to compared to where she started from. So she was asking if that was her moving towards a plateau. So Polly, that's a great question you asked, and it certainly might seem that you're moving towards a plateau. But just to give you some context, Polly lost about 3 pounds her first week, 3.5 pounds her second week, 2.4 pounds third week, 1.5 pounds her fourth week, 2 pounds her fifth week, 1 pound her sixth week, 1 pound her seventh week, 0.75 pounds the eighth week, and then half a pound on her ninth week. That is what amazing progress looks like, by the way. So awesome job, Polly, for your hard work. For anyone not doing the math, that is nearly 16 pounds in 9 weeks. Most people would be ecstatic beyond words to see that kind of progress. I had never, that's amazing, seriously. One thing I do want to mention in this case, though, is while we use some basic estimations and calculations to figure out a calorie goal, and we can kind of say that there are some statistical models that would allow us to predict a set amount of weight loss per week, the body doesn't work that way. The body is not simple enough to model with 100% precision accuracy. It's a complex system. We can look at the ins and the outs, but then you have the human metabolism in the middle that's a big jumble of complicated things that are beyond current scientific ability to measure accurately. So what we try to do is manipulate the ends, and we have inputs and outputs into the middle, and the human metabolism does whatever the hell it wants to. And all the emotion and anger and rash decisions and being unobjective about what's going on doesn't change that fact. So what we can just try to do is look at trends over a long period of time and enjoy the ride. So in this case, weight loss is not going to happen in a straight line, no matter what you do. There's literally nothing in the entire universe that you could do to make weight loss happen in a linear fashion, straight down, predictably across. Nothing. It's literally impossible. I would say that this does not indicate a plateau yet. And unfortunately, coming up to a plateau is not something that we can predict, because there are so many variables that we can't control. A plateau would be a few weeks of no downward movement or upward movement in both measurements and scale weight. And I've even seen cases where the scale goes up, the measurements go up, but clothes fit better and someone feels great. And that's really what it's about. There are, in fact, going to be weeks when your average might go up, even when you are 1,000% doing everything correct. So that's just how it works. There is not a one-to-one correlation between I hit my calorie goals and I lost weight. It doesn't work that way. That just doesn't happen as a result of the other. It's about doing it consistently over time, and you nudge the trend line down. So there's not a direct correlation. So just because you had 7 days in a row of being in a calorie deficit doesn't mean the scale goes down on the 8th day. I'm sorry if the mainstream fitness industry kind of perpetuates that myth, but it's definitely not true. Yeah, so that's simply the nature of how it works. And I say simply meaning that the numbers look like there's some simple thing to manipulate, but the human metabolism we don't fully understand yet. Water balance and fat loss don't happen in a predictable way whatsoever. So we don't really have a way to do that. I know in my own journey, there were times when the scale went up 3 weeks in a row, despite being on point 100% for 21 days in a row, and the scale went up 3 weeks in a row. And then it dropped in the fourth week. So it's important that the longer we do this, the more we start to look at that trend over a long enough timeline. These are not so very exciting facts to have to confront and face as part of our journey. And I understand that because I've been there. But it's critically important that we ensure that what we are doing does not feel like suffering. If you hate what you're doing to lose weight and it feels like suffering, the bad news is it's not going to last. So there is a delicate balance between being fast enough to stay motivating and not feeling like suffering. If you're motivated by seeing fast weight loss on the scale, but it's suffering, you're going to see fast weight loss and then you're going to see fast weight gain. If you love the process of what you're doing and the pace feels sustainable and you don't feel like you're cutting out foods you love too much and you don't feel like you have to change your every single facet of your entire life and you feel like a monk or something, or a contest prep bodybuilder, which none of you are. Apologies if someone is a contest prep bodybuilder and just happens to watch this, but that's not who I'm speaking to. If you hate what you're doing, it's not going to last. So if that's something that you're hating what you're doing, then we need to find a more sustainable route for you that unfortunately is going to be slower. So that just means that it'll last longer. The results will last longer. I loved every minute of what I was doing and still do. I love it. And it doesn't feel like a huge burden to me. And it's been sustainable for 8 years. So that's just something to keep in mind. And what I do in the course of those 8 years has changed. So when something felt like, hey, this is too much of a burden, I changed to something else that was easier to work with. And I was okay with the scale kind of not being linear. I had times of weight gain, weight loss, but the point is the line went down and I'm happy. All right, I think that's enough ranting on that one. I do want to mention, though, that Judy recently ran into the same thing. She was down 7 pounds in 9 weeks. And, everyone's going to have their success at a different pace because everyone's different. Things like genetics, age, height, biological sex, activity levels, hormones, stress, sleep, adherence to your calorie and protein recommendations, how much fiber you're getting, how much water, blah, blah, blah. These are all factors as to how quickly you can lose weight. And many of those, if you noticed, are not things you can change. So some things are simply out of your control, and there's nothing you can do about it. What you can do is do really well on the things you can control. But the one thing you can't do is simply just keep eating fewer calories and doing more cardio. It doesn't work that way. Your body has a feedback mechanism where if you starve yourself and over-exercise, the body is going to respond and basically shut down and say, nope, not going to work. So you can't just push through something like that. And that's part of why you have to love the process and let it happen at its own pace. You can't force things. If you've seen the things about The Biggest Loser, those people did eat almost nothing and they exercised 8 hours a day. And guess what? It wasn't sustainable. And most of them gained back all of their weight and then some. So that's not what we're after here. So it is normal, though, to be anxious and impatient. And those are things that are a normal part of the journey that you have to accept that you're going to feel them. And you have to work through those feelings and examine the reasons around why you're feeling that way. So to reiterate, it's critical that you are enjoying the process. It's similar to if you're being excited about something and simply watching the clock rather than being present in the moment of what you're excited about. If your only reason you're doing this is to simply watch the scale go down and enjoy watching the scale go down, then you're missing everything else, all the other good things that are happening as a result of all the changes you're making. And those things matter more than the number on the scale. So it may be time to realign your perception with what really matters. All right. Let's see here. We have 2 questions from Yasmin. So the first one is, Yasmin asks, is there a strategic way to come off of a low-carb program back to a more balanced macro split? or are you pretty much destined to regain weight no matter what you do? Yasmin mentions that she knows that um, someone will regain water weight no matter what when you're introducing carbs due to glycogen replenishment. And what that means is your body stores carbs paired with water inside your muscle tissue that's used as energy. That's what glycogen is. But Yasmin's curious about the actual fat regain. And then she mentions that all the time she's done this, she was overeating. So that's the aha moment. So yes, Yasmin, the aha moment is you're hitting the nail on the head there. Anytime you're in a calorie deficit for a prolonged period of time and you're cutting out macronutrients entirely or food groups, and then you immediately reverse course and return to overeating, yes, your body is primed for fat regain. When you empty out a fat cell, it doesn't just go away, it just hangs there empty, waiting to be refilled. And when you take in more calories than you need to maintain your weight, you will refill those fat cells faster than anything else metabolically because it is less costly to refill the fat cells than to create new fat cells or build muscle tissue. So those fat cells are open, empty, and waiting for you to push extra fat into your body in a calorie surplus. And the second you do, you gain fat. That's simply how it works. So that doesn't just apply to low carb, though. That's simply anything. After you lose weight and you return and then you reverse course and start overeating, that's a problem that you have to contend with. And I've been there myself. I have seen myself go through phases where I've lost a bunch of weight. I did it too fast, and then I regained more weight than I started with at that current phase. So, I got to the point I think, hey, my weight loss is over. I'm done. And rather than accepting that the journey was a lifetime journey, I had an abrupt transition and I wasn't prepared for it, and I regained fat. So as to your question and the strategic way to transition off a temporary low carb approach, yes, there is. And I'm glad you asked that. I have actually recently gone through this with my wife. She was having really bad cravings and uncontrollable hunger, especially around me being a teacher. Towards the end of the year, there were all these teacher appreciation things, which basically meant pizza for lunch, cookies throughout the day, muffins and donuts and bagels for breakfast. It was basically just Carb Fest 2016. So the way we dealt with her cravings and hunger in that case was we temporarily utilized a high protein, moderate fat, low carb approach to reset those cravings and deal with the hunger. The planned transition, because we talked about that first, we did the transition first, was to include unprocessed plant starches at dinner time or post-workout meal. So she was having her dinner after her Kung Fu session in the evening. So the specific strategy here was to stick to low carb for breakfast, lunch, and snacks. And then for dinner time after her workout, she would include something like a potato or some starchier things or fruits on a salad with dinner, something like that. So after a few days of that, once she kind of felt like she was stabilizing and it wasn't causing like a binge or anything, was to kind of trickle in additional plant-based starches like baby carrots in the lunchtime, things like that you could kind of test and see how you react to, because it's still possible that you have some carb-related binge triggers that were kind of driving your cravings. So then you kind of selectively add things back in one at a time, and you can say, okay, this works. This makes me feel great. I'm not bloated. I have a lot of energy. I don't feel like crap eating it. And then you add in the next thing. So if you add a food back in and you said, oh boy, I don't really feel too good when I eat this, then you know. So that is the strategy that I'd recommend. Now, you don't necessarily need to move away from a low carb approach entirely towards a high carb diet if you're still trying to lose weight. And what I mean by that is you could do something called a targeted low carb diet, where essentially your carbs are timed around your strenuous exercise. So that means before you work out and after you work out, you have your carbs. And what that does is it ensures you have enough energy to complete the workout with high intensity. And that also means that those carbs are refueling your body in the most efficient way possible. Right after you work out, your body is primed to build muscle and repair muscle. So if you give it the right building blocks to do that, it does that more efficiently. Now, that may be a level of micromanagement that is not helpful to you. It's something to keep in mind where the specifics might not be useful, but the use of as a strategy may help you to incorporate carbs back in a way that allows you to have them, but also have guidelines like a low carb breakfast, high protein breakfast that will help you with hunger and blood sugar control throughout the day. So the one thing just to mention is that when I say low carb, I mean high protein, moderate fat, but there is another type of low carb called ketogenic low carb, but it's moderate protein, really high fat, and basically no carbs. And that's a whole different beast to get into. And that may actually require an even slower transition phase as far as that goes, because you can actually get sick if you ramp up the carbs a little too much there if you're in full-blown ketosis. And the reason you do the high fat is because ketosis is a state of your body where you're not burning carbs for fuel at all. And even protein can pull you out of that. So you ramp up the fat really high. And, I know a couple people doing that, but it's not something you can just jam carbs back in and feel great. You can actually feel sick from it. So that's something to keep in mind. All right. Our last question is from Yasmin. And Yasmin asks, what are your thoughts on pre-workout supplements and BCAAs, which are branched chain amino acids, which is a supplement, especially for someone trying to maintain muscle mass rather than gain muscle? So regarding pre-workout supplements, I'm not a fan. I've taken some before in the past. I've discontinued their use. I used to take some caffeine pills prior to my workouts, but I work out in the late afternoon, early evening, and it was impacting my sleep too much, having caffeine that late in the day. I try to cut off caffeine intake by 11 a.m., and my bedtime is usually 9 p.m., which is now. I would rather approach my workouts a little bit differently, where I find my workouts, even though they are high intensity, that they are something that centers me and calms me. And I don't want them to become some anger-fueled, I don't know how to put it, some anger-fueled session where I just kind of work out all my aggression by throwing the weights around. And to me, that just feels like a way to get injured and not focus on proper form. I kind of want to just be able to appreciate the workout and be present in it and be able to kind of focus on it and drown out distractions without having to take a bunch of supplements to do it. If there's something you want to take, as always, you want to use examine.com as a reference. They have unbiased scientific research that basically describes what are the effects of a supplement on a human being, what the studies show. And as a warning, be careful with supplements because the supplement industry is shady. There are lots of controversies always going on about their labels aren't correct. It doesn't have the right amount of what they say. There are always illegal ingredients being found in pre-workouts. Like sometimes there's amphetamines in there. Sometimes there's like analogs to cocaine being found in them, that type of stuff. So you have to be careful with what you put in your body that isn't regulated by the Food and Drug Administration entirely, in the US at least. Currently, my pre-workout is a really ripe banana. And a bunch of people I know give me crap that I eat bananas that ripe, but bananas are a food where the riper they are, the faster digesting the carbs are in them. So if it's a green banana, that has a lot of fiber in it and it digests slowly. But if you get a banana where the peel has some black on it and it's basically almost mush, that's when you can use that as fast acting energy, and I love them that way. So, but I might be a weirdo. Regarding the branched chain amino acids, as long as you're getting sufficient protein intake, there is no need to supplement branched chain amino acids whatsoever. The only reason to do it is if you're working out fasted or you're working out fasted and then you can't eat for an extended period of time after your workout. I know plenty of people that will work out in the morning fasted, not eat anything afterwards, and then not eat for a couple hours afterwards. And that's the case where you'd want to use branched chain amino acids to extend your fast. That's not for me. I've worked out fasted before, but I always ate immediately right afterwards. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right. I think that covers all the questions that I had pre-submitted, and I'm not seeing any being asked right now. So I'm going to say that's a wrap. Like I mentioned earlier, there will be no hangout next week because I will be on vacation. I'll be sending out an email to everyone to let them know the details there. that the Hangout will resume its normal time. And then if you missed anything tonight that I went through already, I will tomorrow when the Hangout posts to YouTube. I'll go back through and put timestamps so you can skip ahead to the different topics. So with that said, everyone have a great night, and I'll be talking to you soon. Take care.